Hi, my name is Chris Boyer and I'm a graduate student at Azusa Pacific University. And for my graduate work in a course called PE 570, I've been given a series of questions for this assignment in regard to leadership. And the first question is, what qualities make an effective leader? Now, an effective leader could be someone who just brings people from point A to point B, but I think it's also important to consider how the journey was along the way. Think of a bus driver going from point A to point B. That's effective in its leadership that you got there from point A to point B, but maybe there wasn't any air conditioning, it was a hot day, or the bus broke down along the way. I know that as a young leader, I personally made a lot of mistakes and I continue to make mistakes. But this one particular time when I was about 21 years old, I remember taking a group of students up on this long hike. There was bouldering involved and we ran out of water, and I remember people turning around and heading back and just so many leadership mistakes that jeopardized people's safety, to letting people head back down the mountain without really making sure that they were safely going to get back, to starting off just not planning with enough water, or turning around when we realized we didn't have enough water. I hope that I can learn from my past mistakes and learn from others as well. I currently coach water polo at Los Osos High School, and there I have some team captains that I've selected. I have 3 senior captains and 1 junior captain. And I have a weekly captains meeting where I assess how things are going, but I also give them reading assignments. From Jim Collins' book, Good to Great, he defines level 5 leader, or basically the greatest leaders. And they have these 2 outstanding traits, an iron will and personal humility. And there's a degree of like a dichotomy or a juxtapose between those, because we think of great leaders as being like just super decisive and they know what way they're going and that's it. But not only do they have this iron will for the organization, not for themselves, but for the organization, but they also have a great personal humility. Are leaders born or are leaders developed? And in that, I would say that we definitely are born with a certain set of talents, each one of us, and we have a disposition. Certain things like Myers-Briggs typing index give us opportunities to see what we have strengths in. But I know that just because you have a strength doesn't mean that that is going to be something that puts you into leadership. In fact, I personally find that some of the best leaders are introverts and maybe not extroverts. But most people would look at extroverts and go, hey, that person's probably a natural born leader. At the same time, I believe that there are skills and knowledge that must be given to individuals, regardless of what their talent base was or their gifting. That there's skills and knowledge that are developed in leadership. So because leadership can be taught, because you can have an introvert become a great leader, or you could have someone who maybe isn't comfortable with public speaking, but then they're trained into it. There are people who don't have the knowledge and skills, but have the skill set, and maybe they're not great leaders. So I definitely believe that because of that, because leadership can be taught, leadership can be developed, I believe that although there are certain genetic dispositions or characteristics of individuals that they're already naturally they had to begin with, I believe that leadership is primarily something that. In his guide to interscholastic athletic administration, Blackburn stated that with experience comes expertise. And through the opinions of many leaders, it was shown that a leader who's not competent and equipped is going to have a hard time in athletic administration in high school settings. So today, it's not just, do you have someone who's a good leader, but are they competent? Are they equipped? Do they have the knowledge base? Do they have the experience? Kim Korosky says, as with all roles, a fundamental knowledge base will give an athletic administrator both competence and confidence to execute daily duties of the position while being guided by sound principles of education. What I understand that to mean is that there is going to be a skill base and knowledge that's developed over time that is a skill set that's specific to athletic administration. So I believe that not only does one have to be a good leader, but they have to be equipped properly in order to execute their duties fully. Second question that I would like to address is, what impact does your faith, values, and beliefs have on your teaching and or coaching? I believe that all educators have spiritual viewpoints that will be reflected in both their relationships and in their teaching or their coaching or their influence. Jesus taught that out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. As humans, we all have a culture and a value system, and those faith, values, and beliefs will be reflected in what we say and what we do, and it will impact those who we lead as educators. In my worldview as a Christian, I can see all men as equal children of God, regardless of gender, race, religion, or economic status. When Jesus spoke to anyone, whether it was the sick, it was the sinners, or it was those in the center of the economic society at the time, in my worldview as a Christian, I see all men equal in the eyes of God, regardless of gender, race, religion, or economic status. When Jesus spoke to anyone, whether it was a woman or it was someone who had political power or someone who was an outcast of society, he was able to connect on every level. I believe that as a Christian, my faith ought to lead me to greater equity and kindness in leadership. God gave Jesus to be an example. God gave Jesus to be an example and to die as an atonement for sin for the world. An example of Jesus serving those who he led is when Jesus bent down and washed his disciples' feet. This example was a unique moment, which communicated the need for leaders to bend down, to be willing to put a towel over their arm and serve those who they lead. Jesus showed great humility in leadership and showed us the need for servant leadership. Jesus also told a story about a man that was robbed and beaten on a dangerous trade route. After he was robbed and beaten, he was left for dead. And there were some religious guys who passed by and they didn't help him. But the man who outstretched a helping hand was actually an outcast of society and one who would be considered the irreligious. I think this example is a great example of how Jesus was pointing to the fact that it's not about being religious, but it's about expressing loving kindness in this world. I know of more Christian hospitals than atheist hospitals or Buddhist hospitals or any other type of hospital. Now, I don't believe that's because I'm in a predominantly Christian part of the world, but I believe that it's because the core tenets of Christianity lead Christians to express that loving kindness in the world, that the core tenets of following Jesus lead his followers to be more empathetic and more kind. There are Buddhists and atheists and Muslims showing loving kindness throughout the world, and there are Christians who are not doing that as well. So it's not that it's this or that. We're all human and we have the capacity to love and to show kindness. But I do believe that through Jesus' example, that he teaches us to show loving kindness, and through the example in his teachings, that we are able to demonstrate that in this world. In addition to that, Christians believe that they're under the watchful eye of a loving Creator who knows everything that we are doing, and we will give an account to him at some point in time. As Christians, we also believe that we are under the watchful eye of a loving Creator to whom we must give an account someday. And so because of that, we also want to express what he asks us to do in this world, because we believe that we are always watched and that we will give an account of what we've done with our time while we're here. In addition, we have been forgiven and pardoned of a great debt or sin that was held against us. And so out of gratitude in our hearts, as Christians, we want to respond by pouring out into others what we have been freely given. And so not out of just duty or obedience to a Creator who always watches us, but out of gratitude, I believe that Christians, and I as a Christian, can respond in such a way that our faith will be poured out into those who we lead and those who we serve. The next question is to describe what those qualities look like in real life. So I really hope to demonstrate the qualities which I have discussed. I'm not a perfect leader. I'm not a perfect father or husband. but I hope by the grace of God I might demonstrate Christ and bring a positive light to any room I'm a part of. When Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount, he told his followers to be like a light on a stand. Jesus said that if you don't light a lamp and put it under a bowl, but instead you put it on top of a stand so it lights up the whole room and everyone in the room can benefit from that light. I hope that the impact of Jesus on my life has somehow will leak out and impact those around me. In his book, Love Does, Bob Goff wrote about an old Jeep that had been in an accident and motor oil would leak out of the motor onto his driveway or anywhere else that he parked. Everywhere he parked the Jeep, it would leave a mark behind that he had been there. Like his Jeep, if Christians are full of the Spirit and full of faith, that will naturally leak out into each and every endeavor of our lives. As a coach and as an educator, I want to demonstrate my faith in loving kindness. I also want to learn to be a level 5 leader. In my coaching and teaching, I would hope to demonstrate great patience and careful instruction. I want to demonstrate how a coach can have high standards and a strong command presence, and yet be filled with graciousness and kind words towards those he leads and serves. I'm personally leading a coaching staff of 3, so I have 2 other assistant coaches. And I've appointed a number of team captains, 3 senior captains and 1 junior captain, as well as I have 2 captains for each of the lower level teams. Each week I have the captain's meeting, as I've mentioned, and during our meeting, I listen to the feedback that they have, their reflections on their leadership reading, and their feedback on the state of the team. 3 of the questions that I ask the students each week is, what's going well? What do you want to see more of? And what must I change? I've heard it said that no leader can make the appropriate decision with wrong information. So as a leader, I'm trying to gather as much information as I can from them to be able to direct the decisions of my programming and where we're going as a team. Although it's hard hearing their feedback at times, it can be difficult. I feel it's really helped me to navigate the waters of coaching and make adjustments when necessary. Of course, I have to say that I haven't arrived at becoming a level 5 leader, but I hope I'm on the right path. And I do believe that it's a journey, not a destination. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on leadership.